All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you so much, folks. It's a much warmer than expected Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp, and we got quite a bit to talk about this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're on the I-70 Sports Media Facebook stream, the Twitter stream, our YouTube channel. If you're on the Roundabout Sports Facebook channel, you can find us all over social media. And definitely send in your comments, everything you have that you want to have discussed on air. So, first thing I want to talk about is the plethora of injuries going on. And yes, hello to my parents who are currently enjoying a vacation in South Dakota. I'm going to go see Mount Rushmore this week. And so that's always, I'm excited for them. As I was saying, so the NFL injuries have just gone unbelievably high this year. So, and it all started, week one with Aaron Rodgers going down just a few plays into the game with his Achilles injury. But it's gone crazy since then. So we're gonna talk about that. What could be some of the reasons behind that? Whether it's just the sport or what it could be. So here we go. We take a look at some of the players that have recently been added to the injured reserve list in the NFL. That includes All-Pro star wide receiver for the Vikings, Justin Jefferson. Rookie quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, Anthony Richardson, and star running back for the Arizona Cardinals, James Conner. Multiple players such as Travis Kelce, Deshaun Watson, as well as Cooper Kupp's finally returned, but Derrick Henry's also been limited, and a lot of it's still coming back to the NFL turf versus grass debate. Now, the big part of the debate comes in, and first, also, welcome to Christopher Miles, host of Issues with Wrestling. Every week, be sure to check it out on Facebook as well as YouTube. And you can find our shows on all the different platforms out there, like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, the works. Now, so this is what happened. I want to do something where we talk about turf versus grass. Now, currently, right now, there are more teams in the NFL that have grass fields than turf fields. And typically, recent data suggests that players that play on the turf fields tend to get injured more frequently than players on grass fields. A lot of it has to do with the amount of give that the field has, obviously. And Christopher Miles just says ban turf for the sake of player safety. Turf field does not have give to it. Because it's artificial, there's no way around manipulating it. It doesn't get indented. It is what it is. Whereas grass, of course, if it's storming, we know becomes soggier, more slippery, becomes dry. It's more hard on the field. So grass is more manipulative, and therefore players can make different cuts and everything that could potentially limit potential injuries. So now, in the NFL, the Players Union prefers grass and has been pushing for it. The NFL says some artificial turf fields are safer than some grass fields and wants to reduce injuries on all surfaces, which is, of course, why wouldn't you? Now, so artificial turf, for those that don't know, is made from plastic fiber. It resembles grass, but it has a cushioning infill made of rubber, sand, coconut fiber, or cork. It's definitely not made of coke, I promise. Now, Dr. Brian Cole, an orthopedic surgeon, said that the upside of turf is that players feel more nimble and they feel faster. However, the downside of that is, well, they're faster. It's a collision sport. When velocity goes up, collisions go up. It's science. The faster you go, the harder the impact is going to be when you have to stop suddenly. You know, if I'm walking into somebody, the impact's not going to be the same as if I'm running 20 miles an hour into somebody, which people will be like, what? Yes, football players can run up to 20 miles an hour. So now, 50. So recently, a lot of reports surfaced. A group of researchers reviewed the studies on the grass versus turf debate. They looked at 53 articles that were published between 1972 and 2000. This was about a multitude of professional contact sports that included, but not limited to, football, soccer, rugby, and field hockey. Now, one notable thing to mention is that the studies did not specify on non-contact injuries or actual collision hits, which, of course, non-contact injuries happen all the time, as do the other. Now, the studies do suggest that a higher rate of foot and ankle injuries on artificial turf compared to natural grass. And they do believe there was a study that analyzed over 4,800 NFL foot and leg injuries spanning from 2012 to 2016 in the regular season. They found that 16% more injuries occur on artificial turf compared to grass. The authors of these articles concluded that if all games had been played on grass during that period, there would have been 319 fewer foot and leg injuries. Every injury counts. I mean, that's a significant amount of injuries. And, it's, even though it's not as prevalent in baseball, AstroTurf and artificial turf was something that was very prominent back in the 80s and into the 90s as well. Now, there is a lot of the debate also stems from weather and upkeeping. A poorly maintained grass field is highly more susceptible for players to get injured on, whereas an artificial turf field, which doesn't require as much maintenance and upkeep, can reduce the amount of injuries. Now, the turf at the Dome in America Center in St. Louis, it's not much for injuries, but it just looks absolutely atrocious, and they need to fix it, and they definitely are going to be fixing it. But I digress. Now, grass or hybrid fields may get a boost from the 2026 World Cup. The regulations have not been published, but the grass has been preferred for all the past men's World Cups. 7 of the 11 U.S. venues are NFL stadiums with artificial turf. Now, for the tournament, NFL commissioner said that the stadiums will be putting in hybrid surfaces. Also, of course, technology. Technology has been done just wonders for being able to maintain stadiums more properly than you could in the past. But I think it's now more than ever that, people in the players in the NFL and coaches as well are calling for the ban on turf fields. Um, and as my dad pointed out here in this comment, Bush Memorial Stadium used to have artificial turf back during the days of white ball back in the 80s. And like I said, it headed that way into the 90s as well. Of course, Bush Stadium 3 is now an all grass field. Like I said about the NFL stadiums, there's currently 30. As far as the NFL stadiums go, 15 use different types of synthetic turf, and 15 feature various forms of grass. You may be wondering why there's only 30 stadiums and 32 teams. Of course, Giants and Jets share MetLife, and Chargers and Rams share SoFi. Now, NFLPA President J.C. Tretter said it shouldn't be this hard and believes it's pretty obvious grass would protect players best wherever it's possible. Tretter, who played his career in Green Bay as well as Cleveland, both natural grass stadiums. So be sure to leave in the comments your thoughts on the situation, on whether you feel that grass fields or turf fields are the way to go for the future. Moving on now here in Roundabout Sports, I want to talk a little bit, speaking of Busch Stadium, I guess, might as well talk about the St. Louis Cardinals. It's interesting because look, the Cardinals had their worst season since 1990. It's unbelievable. They finished 71 and 91. Finished last place, the first time since 1990. I'm still in shock over it. So many things went wrong. Now, according to Redbird Rants, as well as many other sources out there, Chairman and CEO Bill DeWitt Jr., as well as President Bill DeWitt III, have talked about the organization being prepared to raise the payroll this offseason, even though they saw a decrease in revenue starting this year. According to Fangraphs, the Cardinals ranked 14th in payroll, but this is the problem with that. Because 14th isn't terrible. Let's put it this way. The Cardinals are not being cheapskates. They're not the Oakland Athletics, soon to be Vegas Athletics. The problem is the pitching market for free agency is going to be massive this year. And teams that are ranked in the middle to lower tier of payroll are not going to be able to afford the high-priced free agent pitchers that the Cardinals desperately need. Aside from Miles Mikolas, we don't know who's going to be in this rotation starting next year. The Cardinals are absolutely lost when it comes to figuring out who's going to be in the bullpen, who's going to be in the rotation. You traded away 2 starters and at least 2 relievers this in the middle at the trade deadline. So and sources have told Derek Gould from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch about a number of pitchers the Cardinals are expressed interest in. Now, these include, but they're once again not limited to, Aaron Nola, Sonny Gray, Blake Snell, Dylan Cease, Tyler Glasnow, and multiple others. Payroll did go up last season, mainly because of internal salaries and payments, but not because of going out and spending big. I mean, honestly, the biggest acquisition last year was Wilson Contreras, and it had mixed results. Now, the Cardinals, for the longest time, have been and were known to have a cheap payroll and yet still be successful. At some point, you got to say, look, and it pays off. It can, at least. Teams like the Diamondbacks and the Orioles have done very well this season without having to spend Dodgers and Yankees money. Meanwhile, the Yankees, who once again had one of the top payrolls in baseball, finished at the bottom, near the bottom of the division, and they were out of the postseason. So it is a give and take thing. That said, and I mean, this is about just as bad as 1990, Jared. I will say though, this is the worst Cardinal. No, this is better by one game. And the thing of it is, the Cardinals have only finished in last place 3 times since 1918. They finished in 1918, 1990, and in 2023 in last place. The difference is, following the season, as well as during the season, a lot of change occurred. Whitey Herzog resigned. You know, this is around the period of new ownership taking place. And meanwhile, as far as management and coaching goes, everybody Mozeliak wants back next year is going back next year. Ollie's not getting fired. He's not going to step down. He's still on this team. And a lot of people are concerned about that. A lot of people are bothered by that fact. And I get it. Ollie, we've said it on the show before, and I know a lot of people have mentioned it. But one reason that the Cardinals upper brass likes Ollie so much is because of how much he's not going to push back when it comes to guys like the DeWitts and Mozeliak, the way that Mike Schilt did, for example. Schilt pushed back a lot, and at the end of the day, he paid for it. I also think there was more unnecessary drama in this locker room. Everything with Contreras, as well as everything regarding Tyler O'Neill. This just was an absolute crap season from top to bottom for the Cardinals. And it is what it is, That's just how the cookies crumble, if you will. But meanwhile, you look at teams in the playoffs right now, because Lord knows it ain't the Cardinals. Let's see. Oh, give me 1 second. Ugh. We take a look at some of the postseason standings right now. And that's another thing I'm going to have to bring up right now, is the fact that a lot of people are upset because of some of the formats. Some people feel the NLDS and ALDS should be a best of 7. Look, it is just fine being a best of 5 series, and then the winners of that NLCS and ALCS goes to 7 games, and then the World Series goes to 7 games. That's just how I look at it. So right now, taking a look at the postseason, the Diamondbacks, who will be playing at the conclusion of tonight's show. Once again, this is tentative on October 11th, 2023. They are up 2-0 on the Dodgers in the series. The Braves and Phillies are tied 1-1 in the series. The Astros are up 2-1 on the Twins. And I mean, believe it or not, the Rangers swept the Orioles 3-0. And it's heartbreaking for me because the Orioles were like that team, that sleeper team I definitely wanted to see make it. But, you know, and a lot of people are also talking about how the Dodgers, their regular season success definitely does not equate to their postseason success. As 3 out of the last 4 seasons, they've won 100 or more games, and they've been at or on the verge of being eliminated in the divisional round, depending on what happens tonight. Obviously, the one exception to everything was the COVID-shortened 2020 season where they won the World Series. And I don't care what other people say. It's a season. It's a baseball season. It may not have been much of one, but it's a baseball season. So yeah, that about covers it for the baseball section this week here on Roundabout Sports. I want to head to some of the other interesting headlines going on right now in the NFL, or I'm sorry, in the world of sports in general. So this is interesting. The NBA currently is pushing an 82 game mindset to players ahead of the regular season. This is being reported by ESPN's Tim Bontemps. The NBA executive vice president, Joe Dumars, said the league's told players we're really emphasizing it's an 82 game season. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the NBA is trying to increase participation among top players heading into the year, which a lot also has to do with the national broadcasting deals that are in place with the NBA. Of course, the 2024-2025 television season is when the TV rights expire and they want to renegotiate. And it's kind of hard to when a lot of your top stars in the league don't play every game. And at the very least, I wouldn't say every game. You know, it takes a real workhorse to go out and play every game in a season. Like, I mean, in any sport. But in sports like hockey, baseball, and basketball, specifically because of the length of the season, or the amount of games, I should say. But the NBA's new participation policy, which ties players winning the MVP award and other top honors to competing in at least 65 games. It includes a system for finding players based off of players that intentionally rest without any actual injury issues. So it's the equivalent. Okay, we're just going to use an example. LeBron James. Okay, say LeBron James isn't having an injury issue, but he wants to rest for 2 games in a row. Well, the NBA ain't going to let him do that. I mean, they might because LeBron James is God in basketball, and so that's beside the point. I mean, Dame, Giannis, the upper elite players in the NBA, it could be anybody, but they are the reason that, like, for them to be considered for an MVP award, you have to participate in at least 65 games. And, you know, that still leaves 17 games in which you can rest, but there's going to be now more emphasis on those 17 games because if you're not injured or it's not a severe emergency, then you're out of luck, you know? I mean, then again, they make enough money on sponsorships and everything to where it should be fine for them. But I digress. So that's one of the big strong points heading into the NBA. Meanwhile, we got big time NBA or NHL news. The 20-year-old, now this is crazy to think about, but at 20 years old, Owen Power of the Buffalo Sabres has signed a 7-year, $58.45 million contract. It begins next season and has an average value of $8.35 million. He was the number one pick in the 2021 NHL draft. He was a finalist for the Calder Trophy as NHL Rookie of the Year last year when he had 35 points. And he's in the final season of a 3-year entry-level contract. Power is becoming one of the focal points of the Sabres' future, and locking him up on a 7-year deal is just a massive, no pun intended. It's big because they are looking to make it back to the postseason for the first time since 2011. They will open the regular season against the Rangers at the KeyBank Center on Thursday, 7 p.m. Buffalo was 5th last year in the Atlantic Division. Meanwhile, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, the St. Louis Blues will kick off their 2023 campaign against the Dallas Stars. Meanwhile, on October 19th, the Blues Hall of Fame class of 2024 will be announced. Tickets for the October 19th game are available on Ticketmaster.com. So the inaugural class featured the 11 former players, including the Plager brothers, Brett Hull, Al McInnes, Pronger, Brian Suter, Gary Unger, and Bernie Federko, among many others. And coming up in about in 8 days from now, actually, a week from tomorrow, they'll be announcing the 2024 Hall of Fame class. So I'm really curious to see some of the names that will be included on that. Now, we talked about opening night tomorrow night for the St. Louis Blues. The biggest addition to this team heading into this season is Kevin Hayes. He's a 6'5" forward who they acquired by the Blues in a trade with the Flyers this past summer. There are a lot of new faces: Kasperi Kapanen, Nikita Alexandrov, Tyler Tucker. They started last month with 60 players on the roster. A lot of cuts have been made, and now we're set for the 23-man roster. So, of course, Joe Hofer and Jordan Bennington are the two goalies. Guys such as Torrey Krug, Robert Bertuzzo, Nick Leddy, Marco Scandinella, Periaco, Justin Falk are some of the notable defensemen. The newest captain for the Blues, Braden Shen, as well as Robert Thomas, Brandon Saad, Jordan Kyrou, Oscar Sundquist, Sammy Bly, and Kevin Hayes, among others, are some of the forwards that will be featured on this team. Coach Craig Berube returns for his 4th go-round. Actually, his 5th go-round, if you want to get technical. So it's definitely something I'm looking forward to, seeing the Blues bounce back after what was just a very disappointing season last year. Once again, so the Cardinals had a disappointing season this year, Blues last year. Hoping everybody in St. Louis can bounce back. Now, before we close for the evening this week on Roundabout Sports, I'm going to preview a little bit of updated news heading into tomorrow night's Chiefs-Broncos Thursday night football game. Kansas City's entering the game at 4-1. Denver is 1-4. They are the Chiefs are the 10-point favorites. It'll be the 6th straight game the Chiefs are listed as favorites in this matchup. And if you don't, give me 1 second. They've won in the last 5 years. They've won all the games they've played against Denver, dating back to October 1st of 2018. The over/under is set at 51 points. Now, 3 Chiefs are listed as questionable. Frank Clark is listed as out. DJ Jones is listed as out, and Baron Browning is listed as out for the Broncos. Whereas for the Chiefs, Travis Kelce and Tommy Townsend are listed as questionable. Also on the injury report are guys such as Kadarius Toney and Nick Bolton, and Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed, although all 4 players mentioned are expected to play. And for those wondering, yes, Travis Kelce is dealing with a low ankle sprain, but he is expected to go for tomorrow night's rivalry matchup, but it is still something worth keeping an eye on. With that, folks, we're going to wrap it up this week here on Roundabout Sports. I want to thank everybody who's tuned this evening and, the amazing fans. It means so much to me that you all are tuning in. And, of course, before we close out, I always want to put up on the bottom ticker on the screen the NAMI helpline. It's 1-800-950-NAMI. That's 1-800-950-NAMI. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. Also, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. For that, you can dial 988. The line's open 24/7, 365, 366 on a leap year. Understand that you're never alone in this world. There are so many people out there that are willing to help you, and nobody deserves to have to go through the struggles in life alone. And the help you could need is just a phone call or a text message away. And you could also be the listening ears for somebody else. And I also want to send, my prayers out to everybody overseas in Israel, in the Israel-Hamas war. I do have family currently in Israel, and my girlfriend has friends in Israel, so I pray for their safety through all of this. So, thank you so much, folks, for tuning in to Roundabout Sports. Be sure to find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at Interstate 70 Sports Media and at Roundabout Sports. And always remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Carp. Good night, everybody.